everyone. Hello, friends who are tuning in from LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook. Welcome back to my weekly Happy Home Day LinkedIn Live 30 minutes coffee break. I hope you bring your coffee with your LinkedIn girl. For those of you who have following me for a while, you guys know the drill. Please let me know where you're dialing in from. I'm so excited to have you today, and I love me a good cup of coffee. So, if for those of you who don't know me, I'm Salina Yang, the ex-LinkedIn girl who turned into the CEO of the In Academy in the middle of COVID. I'm showing up for you and my amazing community every single Wednesday to share one topic, something that I'm very passionate about, or one tip or hacks to help you to get real result on LinkedIn and utilize the power of this amazing platform and stop feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or lack of time to figure out all by yourself. I'm here for you. And let's get started. I'm just hoping some comments throwing in so I know, for those of you who know and have been tuning in for a while that, I'm doing this StreamYard. If there's no comments coming in, I don't know actually whether I'm live or not. So it would be amazing if you just say hi to me, because today I have a really special guest and I can't wait to introduce to you. Oh, great, Melly. Oh, thank you. I think it's just the delay. Oh my gosh, I see it coming already. And Tara, good morning from cloudy, misty lunar eclipse this morning in Monterrey, Mexico. Oh, amazing. And Stephen, I'm so glad you're here again, week in and week out. I'm so happy you're here. And Bridget's here. Hi, Salina, everyone. Oh, I love that you're saying everyone because it is a community. And Joshua, I'm here multitasking from NYC. Hello. I love that. Keep it going and let me know where you're dialing in. So I already sort of share a little bit if you guys saw my post earlier, and you might know already the guest, but I just want to quickly share with you that, oh, hi from Holland, Yanla. I hope I pronounced your name right. And first time, lunar eclipse day, I know, right? Exciting. We're going to talk a little bit about that if we have time. Us human are nature storytelling animal. I like to start it with that because I always constantly talk about your profile is your story if you have been following my content for a while. And it should be your content on LinkedIn or various social media should be telling your story. Think about 3 things with me and let me know in the comment box below whether that's something that you think is also impactful. One is our body goes to sleep, but our mind stay up all night telling ourselves story, which is dreaming, right? So we are storytelling animal. And we all love a fantastic good tale, movies, a story that resonate with our lives as our level of oxytocin increase, which is the feel-good hormones. So I hope that also resonate with you. And last but not least, when you are young, our parents used to tell us bedtime story, and we're so young and we want to back for more because it's so incredibly nice to hear all these amazing stories, and it's a great learning. So when we hear a well-told story, our brain reacts as we're experiencing it ourselves. It allows us to walk into the shoes of others and experience what they have experienced, and that's how story make us human. Give me a yes below if you agree that story is so powerful, because today I have this amazing special guest and I'm so stoked to introduce you. And an incredible LinkedIn friend, I'm going to introduce you to someone who is specialized as storytelling coach. He's the host of Storypowers Podcast. His videos are one of the very few, I would say, crack me up straight. And also I will watch until the end. And he helps leaders, entrepreneurs attract clients and close deals through the power of story. Did you hear just perk up? I am indeed. So I want you to walk out from this show today feeling empowered, confidence to tell your own story. And I think we could all use an extra shot coffee shop, just rhyming with it, creativity, and tangible takeaway to make a huge difference in building that genuine relationship with your potential clients by telling your unique story. And that's what this episode is all about. I couldn't think of a better person to talk to you about the power of storytelling. So who is this amazing story coach I'm talking about? Welcome, Francisco. Woo!
Hello, Salina. Hello, everyone.
Hello. I see that a lot of people is already like, please give a warm welcome to Francisco. Francisco is so happy to see you, and I see that you bring your beverages. Thank you. Cheers. Awesome. How is your day going?
It's going fine. We talked about just before starting, I had this big launch today. So just today launched my storytelling course. And so I've been following up with people and talking about it, and actually have a couple of last videos that I need to film and get it up there. But yeah, it's been good so far. It's been a lovely day here in Barcelona, which helps because it's been a week of miserable weather, and it can't really do much with the filming when that's happening.
I know, Luxembourg as well. It's just really, really bad weather. I don't know whether you guys can see it. It's raining like crazy right now. So it's just not really a happy mood. So perhaps it's the perfect, for us to be creative and stay indoor and think about some of the things that we're planning for our business. So Francisco, tell us one fact about you that is not on your profile. I'm pretty sure my audience would love to get to know you. And I see tons of people saying hi here, or just like rolling up. And so what are some of the one fun fact? Because I asked all my guests, everyone in my show about this, that is about you that is not on your LinkedIn profile.
This is going to rob me of a lot of fun. But the one fact about me that most people on LinkedIn don't seem to know is that I'm Brazilian. I'm not Spanish. So people keep reaching out to me in Spanish and talking to me and giving me their best attempt at speaking Spanish. And I always reply saying, why are you talking to me in Spanish? And people have no idea what I'm saying. Why would I possibly say that? And then I just let them hang themselves for a bit. And then I say, I'm not Spanish, right? And it just blows my mind.
Oh, I was wondering, is it because your location is in Barcelona and somehow they just assume you're Spanish speaking?
It's a fair assumption. I'm called Francisco. I live in Barcelona. But no, I'm actually from Brazil. But I don't think you can find that anywhere in my profile.
All right, this is good. Good stuff, everyone. Now you know Francisco is Brazilian. So don't wrote to him anymore about Spanish, please, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing. This is a really good, interesting fact about you, and I'm pretty sure my audience know. And I see that tons of people saying hi. Dr. Pagash, say hi, Francisco.
Hello,
Andrew,
Dr. Pagash.
Amazing to see you again and again. I love this amazing audience. I know for a fact that for San Francisco right now, San Francisco, it's 6 a.m. So thank you so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate you, my friend. And also Taro here. It's Francisco Flintstone. Interesting. I know my audience are very cute all the time.
This was one of the videos I put out, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, when it was a very painful revelation when I had to share how I think my wife is cheating on me with Fred Flintstone. But it's all for the to build my mission in life with stories and telling people stories. And if I have to disclose painful personal facts like that one, then it's all part of it.
And I love it, and I can't wait to hear more. And obviously Atero here is a big fan. That's why he knows your content and he talk about that. That's amazing. And Kayleen here, so good to see you. Hello. And Valerie here, love a good coffee, love a great story, and storytelling is my jam. Awesome. And Francisco, tell us a little bit, like, when do you started to find story as the vocal of your business? Because now you are the story coach and you teach people how to tell story, and how that becomes one of your gig or your jam.
Sure. you know that horrible dream where you are standing in front of the classroom and everybody's just waiting for you to speak. So I actually lived that when I was about 12 years old. So my seventh grade teacher looked at me and said, Francisco, can you please come up here and share your story with the whole class? So I looked at some of the other kids, and half of them were horrified. The other half were just, looking forward to watch me crash and burn. So I slowly made my way up to the front of the class. But as I got up there, I realized that, I was pretty scared, but I was also a little excited. And that was because I wasn't really a popular kid. So I was raised by my mom. We didn't have that much money, and she made a lot of effort to put me into this fancy private school. But when
Okay.
you go to a school where most of the kids have more money than you, then they have more money than you, and you cannot buy the same clothes. You cannot go on the school trips. If they invite you to their house, it's 5 times bigger than your house, so you're pretty embarrassed to have them back at yours. So I never really felt like I fit in. Uh,
Mm.
and then as I was getting up onto to the front of the class, I thought, but what if they like my story? And so I went up there and I told them a story I had written, and they loved it, and they laughed and they cheered. And for those moments when I was up there in front of them, I was the most popular kid in that class. And more importantly, I just felt like one of them. But then, the bell rang. I went out of the classroom, and then I was just regular old me. And for many years, I completely forgot about stories, and I went off and did, had more of a normal job that was actually pretty boring. And after many years, I was like, I woke up every morning, I had to drag myself out of bed. I was looking forward to the Friday. I was just never excited about what I was doing in life. And then when I found out I was going to have a second kid, because even though I'm a grown up and I should know how these things work, it seemed to be a big surprise for me that my wife was pregnant again. And at that moment, I thought, okay, I'm an adult. I'm going to have two children, a wife. This is the rest of my life. This is it. This is what I'm doing every day for the rest of my life.
Yes.
And it scared the hell out of me. I thought, no, there's got to be more to life than this. And that's when I decided to go back to something that I felt really passionate about, which was, getting in front of people, telling them stories, helping them tell their own stories. And that was the beginning of me starting to do the things that I'm doing now with story. And that was maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, and that's how I got where I am now.
Oh my goodness. And thank you so much for sharing, Francisco. Really inspiring. And I got tons of follow-up questions, but I would just basically limit it to two so that we can get to the topic so everyone can learn from you the power of storytelling. So what is the story that you talk about in the class? Do you still remember?
Yes, I remember. No, this is not going to be particularly inspiring, but this is the story.
Please.
So I had invented this crappy detective, and his name was Tapeworm, because he was really skinny and he could never solve any crimes because he always got distracted by food. So it was like the world's worst detective. He always got into these terrible situations because he was always looking for food and never paying attention to the job he was actually trying to do. So I remember that they thought the story was really funny. Everybody loved it, and I ended up writing a whole bunch of those stories. And in that class, the teacher would often ask, does anybody want to hear another one of Francisco's stories? And people were like, oh yeah, can we hear more about Tapeworm? And then I'll go
Oh,
up
love
there and
that.
tell them
Oh,
about.
it's so good. That could be actually a Netflix idea about a really, really bad. That reminds me of, what's, sorry, Beans. Beans is
Yeah,
not a detective, but he's a spy, and he just like always get
yeah,
like distracted by other
yeah,
things like except his real job, right? So
yeah,
I guess
yeah.
yours work, and I liked
Yeah.
tapeworm.
Yeah,
I
well,
like.
there was Pink Panther, and there was Mr. Magoo, I think.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
this the funny sort of crappy detective. There's plenty of them. And as a kid, I'm sure I was massively inspired and
Yeah.
half copied some of the stuff from other characters that I liked.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that was a great experience. And I think I have those notebooks somewhere buried in my house back in Brazil, but I
Oh,
don't
that's
know.
so
I'll have to
cute.
find out.
You've got to find it out and take pictures and then perhaps, reinvent the new reel in terms of, some of the story that you have put there and
Mm.
to your video on LinkedIn because
Yeah.
I see tons of it and it truly cracks me up. Andrew, I have a really interesting question for you. Did you ever make any drawings cartoon for Detective Tapeworm?
So draw. I think yes, I think so. But drawing was never a strong point. Like I could just about draw enough that you could tell that he was a person, and I think he would have like an oversized suit, just suit jacket with like a tie that's never properly tied up.
Yeah.
And I think he had some flies hovering around him because I think his hygiene wasn't all the way up there. He was a sad character, Tapeworm. It was more a tragedy than comedy. But I was 12. I didn't pay attention to the right part
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
story, I
No, but you really think about all these things that
guess.
making your character comes alive, right?
Mm,
Because I'm in drama school and I'm a
mm,
huge fan of drama. Obviously, you look at me like such a drama queen, right, Salina? and I remember one of the teacher teaching me about reading the script is you need to bring that person live,
mm.
alive,
Yeah.
and the only way to do it is you create different personality,
Mm,
different special things about it. So for
yeah.
you, knowing he's not hygienic with bulky clothing, perhaps even like half eaten hot dog in one of his pocket, I don't know, like whatever it is that
Yeah.
makes it special and unique.
Mm,
So great question, Andrew. I love that. And he said, when I was young, I made a character. I was
mm.
an Inspector Gadget. Love that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's one point you mentioned about what you do in drama class to bring a character to life. This is very interesting in storytelling because you don't have the time to tell all these things that perhaps you would in drama. You can't. You just if you put too much detail, the story gets slow and
Yes.
becomes too much for people to process. So usually, what you're looking for is one or two details about the character that people would identify with.
Yes.
So if you're talking about a parent, for like a parent of a newborn, all you need to talk about is how, do you know the 3 o'clock, waking up at 3 o'clock and at 4 and at 5. And if you're talking to brand new parents, they recognize that straight away. Or do you know how you now learn how to do everything with just one hand?
Yes.
They would recognize
Because
that.
you have the other. I
So
love that. Yes.
so in oral storytelling, which is most of what I do, you do one or two details that people would identify, and that sort of they build the character in their mind from those one or two details.
Absolutely. Wow, I love that. Like pick and choose 2 to 3 things that sticks
Mm.
so that
Yeah.
story really make it, very attractive and compelling. And
Yeah.
I guess that's the perfect segue for us to talk about the power of storytelling and
Mm.
how do you hope your clients to do that? Because it seems like a pretty abstract idea, right? When we talk about storytelling, it could be anything, right? Personal story, professional story, anything else. And making it alive, we talk about, it's one challenge. The other challenge is how much should we be talking about it?
Yeah.
And also,
Yeah.
how do you help your clients in translating that?
Right. So the first thing I would do is make it less abstract. And if there's one thing that anybody here remembers from this whole conversation, this should be it. Not Detective Tapeworm. It should be this part here, which
Inspection
is
gadget?
that which should be that a story. When you use a story in business, a story is a real life example that makes a point.
Yes.
That's it. So it's not fiction. It's not this convoluted, crazy, weird thing. It's just like you're trying. For example, if I tell part of my story, the whole Detective Tapeworm thing, because I'm talking about the power of story is what I do. So if I can tell you an example from my life where a story had power and changed me and allowed me to do something that I couldn't otherwise, that's a real life example that I'm using to make my point. So when people realize that, they also realize that we do this all the time. Someone tries to explain something to you and you say, Francisco, I'm not sure I get it. Can you give me an example?
Yeah.
And then you give the example, and that's a lot clearer. So
Mm.
what you often doing with storytelling is getting people in the habit of saying, give the example first. And if your example is good enough, you don't even need to explain with all the other stuff you're going to say. So that's the very first thing. Then you can think of storytelling as either a tool that you're going to use for a very specific thing, or as a language. So the tool
Mhm.
part is easier. So people have to entrepreneurs, leaders, small business owners, which are the people that I tend to work with, they need to do presentations, they do workshops, they do LinkedIn lives, they do podcasts, or they guest in podcasts, and often they don't really know what to say. Every single time they go up there, it's a brand new thing they're gonna say, and it doesn't do what I wanted to do, which is it doesn't promote their business, doesn't show them as the expert, doesn't resonate with the people that they're trying to attract as clients. So you find one or two stories that they should be telling over and over, and then when they do these things, they share those stories. So it's going to
Yeah.
be their origin story, it might be their expert story, it might be their help story. And so that's a very specific tool. They learn that story, they repeat that story whenever that's appropriate, and that means that every single time they show up to one person or to many people, they're getting the right message out. So that's one way. And the other way, which is I don't do that much work with individuals, this is more like a corporate thing, but it's applicable as well, is the language part. Telling
Mm.
stories is a language. You get used to it. You do it more and more. If
Yes.
you, I had someone on LinkedIn said to me the other day, "Is there anything you don't have a story for?" And the answer is yes, of course. There's plenty of things I don't have stories for. But the reason I have more stories, this is inverted commas, than most other people is because my brain is trained to look for them and to
Mm.
identify them. So if you tell me about something, I can think of an example from my past, from someone else's life, from something I read in a book or heard in a podcast, and then it becomes the way I communicate.
Yeah.
Tell me something, I'm gonna give you back a story, or an example at least.
Yeah. Wow, this is really, really helpful. So you're training your brain constantly to think about, okay, if I need to explain this to someone or give an example, I use story to explain that. Every little elements when someone is bringing it up, I don't know, like sushi, for instance. I have sushi for lunch. Then you
Yep.
will basically like think in a story or a book or something that you
Yeah.
sort of read about. So tell
Yeah,
me a story
just,
about
just
sushi
let me jump. Let me
because
just,
I'm
yeah.
going
Let me
to
jump.
like practice myself
Let
too.
me. Yeah. So in that
Tip.
example, right? So in the sushi example, if you said, for example,
Yes.
you know, I I love sushi. And then I say, okay, well, why do you love sushi? Sure,
Mhm.
you can tell me because it tastes nice, but you can also, but you're also likely to say, oh, I just before this whole pandemic nonsense, every Wednesday, my friends and I would go to the same restaurant, and this is what we would do there. And that's not quite a story, but it's getting to that. And
Yes.
if you said, oh, I've loved to, how long have you liked sushi? Oh, I've
Mm.
loved it since I was a kid because when I was 5, my father, whatever. And then you're going to tell me, more likely than not, a story of when your father or when first took you to eat sushi or what you used to do all the time with sushi. And
Absolutely.
it's difficult to give many examples with context
Yeah.
without making them into a story, because if I
Yeah.
say, well, I don't, I had a bad experience with sushi and that's why I don't eat it. Now if
Hmm.
you ask me what happened, I have
Yeah.
to tell the story.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can say, oh yes, I ate it once and it was bad, and it made me feel ill, which is a story. It's just a crap one, right?
Yeah.
So what exactly happened? Oh, okay, fine. So I went to this restaurant, and it was a brand new restaurant, and blah blah blah. And then I'm gonna make it more into a story. So we do it. We don't realize we're doing it, but
Without realizing.
personally, every time you speak to someone and say, "Oh, this thing just happened at work," you wouldn't believe,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna tell them a story.
Yes.
Right. So we do it more often than we realize. So it's just training yourself to do it when it's relevant to do it, and when that's a more powerful way to communicate.
Yes. And I felt like in some way I just have a epiphany moment when you're talking about that. That makes us a better communicator.
Yeah.
Like when you share earlier, like about sushi, right? if someone stopped there and say, oh, I don't really like sushi, I just hate the taste, and that's end there. But if you tell a story to explain why you don't like it, it's 10 times better, right? People got more convinced.
100%.
You remember it next time when you hang out again. Oh, where should we go eat? Oh, you don't like sushi, I'll book another restaurant because da 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 da, right? And it makes us a better communicator. That's fantastic.
And it's something that you don't realize, which is this: the brain doesn't do very well with loose facts. So if you tell me I love sushi, I'm gonna now create a story of why you love sushi. Maybe I'm gonna say, well, she looks like she's from from an Asian family, from Asian origin. That's probably why she likes sushi. Now that might be the wrong story. You might actually not be Asian at all. You might love sushi because your first boyfriend loved sushi, and that's so. I made up a story instead of getting your story. So which is not good. And what you just had there, I like to call a kung fu moment. Now you can take this from two movies. It can be The Matrix or Kung Fu Panda. But in The Matrix, remember that Neo is in the ship and they have plugs in the back of his neck and they're loading all these martial arts into his brain. And then when they stop him, he goes, I know Kung Fu. And then Morpheus says, show me. And they go to the dojo and start fighting. So that's when he realizes, wow, I have this power. I didn't know I had this. The Kung Fu Panda is very similar. He realizes that the scroll that was supposed to give all this power is nothing. It's just his confidence that makes him powerful. So that's a Kung Fu moment when you go, I didn't know I could do this, and now I can do this. And the Kung Fu moment is actually one of the things I teach people to look for when they're building their origin story.
Wow, love that. I definitely need to sort of like, after this, you record this, and obviously knowing my Kung Fu moment every time when I'm exercising it. And Andrew said, both great movies. I know Kung Fu. Andrew, actually, I believe you do. Like, Andrew is one of the coolest person that I met through LinkedIn. He self-taught himself tons of languages and very, very embracing multiple different cultures. So I do believe that you know Kung Fu. Great. So this is the Kung Fu sort of moment that you teach sort of some of your clients, and you mentioned a little bit early. So how did the framework works, right? If someone come to you and they say, oh, Francisco, I'm just not sure to what to share about my story, how that works for people that is just constantly stuck, not having that creative juices to keep them flowing.
So the video I just put out today it talks about this idea of the problem with cookbooks. We buy these cookbooks, they look beautiful in our kitchen or on our coffee table, but we don't, you never learn the whole cookbook. And often you don't even learn much of the cookbook because you try a little bit, it's difficult, it's a bit lonely, and you don't get instant feedback. I mean, you make the food and it's crap, but you don't quite know what you did wrong. So it's not necessarily the easiest way to learn. So I had this idea of what if the chef came with the cookbook? And that's what I thought was why boot camps don't work sometimes, is because maybe the group dynamic, it doesn't work for you. Maybe the hours don't work. Maybe you just want to learn in your own time. But on the other hand, online courses can also be cold, a bit impersonal. You lack a little bit more of personalized guidance. So what I've done is I've created those two things, and I've got now the Storypowers Bootcamp, and it's an online learning course. But then every time people go through the steps, they send me stuff. I send them back, voice messages saying, okay, well, the story is great because of these reasons. These are the things you can do better. And then we do coaching on top of that. But when people approach me, it's always one or two things. Either they are pretty decent communicators, but they're not getting the results they want. So, they're not getting inbound leads. Their presentations are not really just doing the job, and they want to improve on that overall. And then it's more the skill of storytelling and teaching them how to do that from the ground up. The other is someone people generally will come to me and say, I need to sort out my origin story. Because I am going to podcasts, I am doing presentations, and I am trying to do it, to talk about it. It's just not working. I don't really know what I'm doing. So they want that project. They want to fix that one thing, the signature presentation, the origin story, the sales story, whatever they have. So it's one of those two. And then one of the nice things of having had the course set up is I can either say, okay, do the whole thing, or I can say, okay, modules 4 and 7 are what you really want. Do the rest if you want, but those are the ones you want to be looking at. So that's what that looks like.
Cool. Wow, really cool. I like the idea that Francisco you share. Like it's true. Like cookbook, I never really follow cookbook because I like doing my own thing anyway. But it's so true. Like when you're stuck somewhere, you have your final product. It's not exactly how the cookbook picture looks like, right? There must be something in between. You have been doing it wrong, but with the cook coming in or personalized it consultation, or helping you to get that extra boost you need to basically go through that hurdle, it's so incredibly important. And I'm so glad that you're doing that for your course. And speaking of the second one, I like that you mentioned, Francisco, the origin story, because I also have several clients coming to me that they're having 20 or 30 days of professional working experience. They're like senior executive, but they constantly don't know about which one should be channeling or which one should be highlighting. And I obviously have some of my own answer, but I'm actually really eager to learn from you as well. Like if people coming to you and say that, Francisco, I have like tens and thousands of origin story on me that I can highlight, which one should you pick? How would you go about this?
Yeah, so it is true that unlike superheroes, we can have more than one origin story. But even if you think of superheroes, it explains a misconception about origin stories. So take Spider-Man, for example. Some people think that the origin story is how he got his powers. He was bitten by a radioactive spider. That's not it. That's not the origin story. The origin story is that he was this nerdy kid. He was not sporty at all, and he was raised by his Uncle Ben and Aunt May. Now he gets bitten by the radioactive spider. He gets the superpowers, and one of the first things he does is he goes into an illegal wrestling match. He puts on a silly mask and goes fight it because he has superpowers. He wins the fight. And as he's outside on the alleyway counting his money, someone comes running past him and some guy shouts, "Stop, thief!" And all he needed to do was put his foot out to make the thief stumble and fall, but he didn't. And when the guy said, "Why didn't you stop him?" And he said, "That's not my problem. What do I have to do with this?" And then later on that same day, as he's coming home, he finds out that his Uncle Ben has been murdered, and the police can catch the police can catch the criminal. He catches the criminal, and the criminal is this thief that he hadn't caught earlier. And that's when he realizes that with great power comes great responsibility. So his origin story is not about the superpowers. It's about, when did I find out that I need to put these superpowers to help other people? So when it comes to people figuring out their own origin story, it's, okay, what is your power now? Who do you help with that power? Now we need to go back to, when did you get that power in the first place? But most importantly, why do you care about using that power? And usually what you're going to find is, someone is a visibility coach on LinkedIn. Often they have a history of not feeling very visible themselves. So the origin story is not about how you got good at doing I'm not sure if that's your origin story, but it's not about assuming it was. This is not about how you got good at making people visible on LinkedIn. It's about, why do you care about making people visible on LinkedIn? How you got good is going to be part of that story, but it's not the main part of that story. Okay, so that it's essentially the argument. What we're looking for is, what is the power now, and go back enough to find when not having that power caused you pain.
Yes.
And when you find that connection between the pain in your past and the power in your present, then you usually have the makings of your origin story.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's where the origin story is being molded, exactly with Peter Parker from Spider-Man. And I just want to quickly highlight a few amazing comments. Valerie, so good that we you dialing in all the way and share that we all have our own superpower. And Maria is so happy that good morning. I know it's super early for you, and so good that you're dialing in. Don't worry, Joanna. I'm so glad that you're here with us. Have a cup of coffee with me and Francisco, and hearing all these amazing golden nuggets that we're learning from Francisco, how you can mold your story, including your original story. And Andrew just said, this is the origin of Peter's motivation. Yes, absolutely. And just say, wow, this is super insightful. And I know you are multitasking and come back to us with this. So kudos to you, Joshua, with your conflicts as well as your cup of coffee, I believe. So glad that you're here. I love that earlier, Francisco, when you say that you need to drill down to, the origin, right? Which is the pain point where everybody start not chapter 10. And that's why throughout some of my content, I always put is stop comparing yourself with someone that is chapter 10. But you need to figure out where is it for you to go to where you are at the moment, where is your expertise or your strength, or I like yours called superpower, right? Yeah. And between it, there's obviously so many different downs, there's ups and downs about that. And how do you filter those that it's truly making that whole, what I call like transformation?
It depends on how long you have. So on my course, what I did, for example, is I told what I consider to be my whole origin story. So there's always stuff you're gonna leave out, but to do it from beginning to end with all the details that I think are relevant to the story, it takes me about 5 minutes. Okay, and I'll include things like Tapeworm, the detective, in that 5-minute version. But when you asked me earlier today, how did I start doing this? I think it took me about 2.5 minutes to tell that story. So I left a whole bunch of stuff out because I don't need that to communicate it. And actually, if I told the story for 5 minutes here, it would just be too much. So the way I teach most people to do it is you do the whole thing. We put all of the details that we think are relevant, and then we start saying, okay, which ones are not supporting the theme of your story, which ones are just repeated, and even when you have stuff that is not repeated, they're all genuine points in your journey to where you are now. Then we need to think, okay, but if you had to tell it in about a minute and a half, what stays and what goes, right?
Yes.
So I can tell my story as quickly as saying, I wasn't really a popular kid in school. I never really felt like I fit in, except when I was in front of the class telling one of my stories. That's when I felt popular. That's when I felt like I belonged. But I forgot about stories for a very long time. And then when I realized that I was really bored about my job, I was super unfulfilled, I hated every morning when the alarm clock rang, I decided that I needed to find that passion and that purpose again. And that's when I got back to stories. Yes. And that's what I'm doing now. Now, that probably has taken 35 to 40 seconds to tell, okay? And it covers the main idea. So you want to have the long version because maybe you have an hour-long presentation, you can generally tell it. You want to have the almost elevator pitch version, but it's just about, this stays, this goes in this case or that case. But
absolutely, yeah, and I like that you mentioned earlier within that 1 minute, even maybe less than 2 minutes, that's actually tell me everything about you need to tell me for why you started this, about the Storypower podcast, as well as your own brand, and now you just sort of like add extra in terms of why you're passionate about it, and then adding some of the background story within it. So I do think having that elevator pitch, a shorter version, and having that long version is super important, depending on when you are delivering it, whether it's through a presentation as well as the format, right? So it's totally it. And I want to back it by sharing a data that I was basically doing research when I'm doing a post, which is attention span. Nowadays, humans have an average attention span less than 7 seconds. It's mind-blowing, right? And
Yep.
for ladybug, you know what's the second of it for the attention span?
What is the what? I'm not sure I
A
got it.
ladybug.
Ah,
Like
right. Oh,
ladybug,
yes. But
attention.
their life, I think their lives are accelerated. So 8 seconds is a lot of time for a ladybug, I think.
True. I would say so for that there are 9 seconds. So it's way longer than human
Right.
being. But
Okay.
what I'm trying to say is it's so important to capture the
Mm.
gist of it whenever you have someone's attention and tell them
Yeah.
directly
Yes.
what needs to be heard and make that impression quickly. So these are some of the things that I do really have to reiterate. And and I'm very, very happy that I have you today, you know, sharing all these. And I know we're time. And it was so nice chatting with you, Francisco. And I'm pretty sure my audience have learned a lot. Joshua, Andrew, Valerie, Caitlin here. And if any of you guys have any question, please drop in the comments box below because we need to go in 3 minutes. And I hope you all have a fantastic coffee break with me as well as Francisco. So Francisco, if someone needs to find you later because I love your banner, very, very sharp, and it looks like Netflix, you know, when you open it.
It's a lawsuit waiting to happen because my LinkedIn headline is become more interesting than Netflix, or this is the first line. And then when we made a banner, we had this, me and the guy who designed it, Danny Bannerman Dan. We had this idea of what if it looked like the homepage of Netflix, and instead of the little different shows, you have present with confidence, attract your ideal clients, persuade without hard selling, and become unforgettable. So as the little sort of shows in my Netflix homepage. But yeah, so the best place to find me, well, LinkedIn is pretty easy. I'm on LinkedIn pretty regularly. And for everything else I'm doing, if you go to storypowers.com, then you can find a link to the podcast. You can find a link to my public speaking book. You can find a link now to the course. It's all there. So storypowers.com.
Amazing. And Francisco, you mentioned about your course. When is it opening for people to register? Is it already open?
So I've now opened it today. And I'm open on. So this is the beta launch. I'm still tweaking and doing a few things and adding some videos, but I'm still taking another 5 students at the beta launch and the almost giving it away price. So yeah, it's open now, and in the next 5 people that come on board will get this for very little money, and then it will be bumped up significantly. But which is not like a fancy sales tactic, by the way. It's not going to be the next 50 people who get this prize. It's just genuinely I'm looking for more feedback than I'm going to be looking for later with the actual course, and because not everything is in there, I said to anyone now, so listen, come on board, we'll tweak some stuff, we'll change some stuff. If you decide that some things you don't like so much or even more of, I'll do them while it's beta. Once it goes live 100%, then that's it. So yeah, it's on my website, but if they go to my LinkedIn, the latest post I have on LinkedIn, and it should be highlighted on the profile later on today.
Amazing. So if any of you are interested to learn from the Story Powers coach right here, Francisco, and please go ahead and check out storypowers.com and subscribe to the beta one because there's only 5 seat left. I'm very, very grateful to have Francisco joining today. And thank you, Andrew, saying this was great. Thank you, Bo. And Joshua, thank you very much for you both and really made me think. And I'm excited to improve my story. Yes. Now you know who to be seeking your help to, and I'm so glad that you could join us today. Francisco, it's so nice to chat with you and have this coffee break with you today, and speak soon, and wish everyone a fantastic week ahead, and I'll see you guys around. Thank you. Bye.